Welcome, everyone, to the latest installment of United Way of Lancaster County's Voices United series. I'm Amanda Burns. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at Community Action Partnership, and I'm a new board member with the United Way of Lancaster County. Literacy touches every stage of life, from early childhood education to adult learning and workforce readiness. It's the thread that connects opportunity, equity, and long-term success. And it's the heart of so much of the work that's being done right here in the Lancaster community. In the next hour, we'll explore how local organizations are addressing literacy in innovative ways, the barriers that learners continue to face, and what each of us can do to support a more literate, empowered community. We'll begin by having each of our panelists briefly introduce themselves and their role in this work. We'll end introductions with Kim Amsler, who will be kicking things off with a 15-minute presentation on current ALICE, which stands for Asset Limited Income Constraint Employed, data to help set the stage for our discussion. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over for introductions. Joshua.
Thanks, Amanda. Hi, everyone. I'm Josh McManness. I'm with IU13 Community Education, and I work as a program manager.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Anna Ramos. I'm the Executive Director for the Workforce Development Board here in Lancaster County.
Hello, I'm Christine Landis. I am the Manager of Children and Teen Services at Lancaster Public Library.
Hi, everyone. Cheryl Hiester with the Literacy Council of Lancaster, Lebanon.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kim Amsler. I'm actually going to pause for a second because I'm going to share my screen and we're going to jump right into a discussion about ALICE and literacy and really set the stage for this training or this conversation here today. So 1 minute. All right, I think we are good to go. So you should all be able to see my screen now. Good morning, everyone. As you can see here, my name is Kim Amsler. I am the Director of Mission Advancement with United Way of Pennsylvania. I wanted to start out this morning and thank United Way of Lancaster County and our panelists and our host for joining us here today, along with all of you from the community to participate in this very important community conversation. Today, we will really be focused on connecting the dots between literacy, economic stability, and lived realities of ALICE households, both here in Lancaster County and across Pennsylvania. I'll also show you how targeted early literacy initiatives like Too Small to Fail are making a difference across the state. So I do know that this will be a review for some of you, and I know that United Way of Lancaster County and their partners in the community are often very well versed on ALICE data and the needs of the community. But I'm going to take just a minute or two here at the beginning to look at some of the new data that came out in our 2025 report to really level set the trends that we have seen over the last several years. As Amanda said earlier, ALICE does stand for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, and Employed. But when we say that, we really want you to picture the many individuals that you interact with on a daily basis. ALICE refers to anyone that lives at or below the survival budget, which we will see in a little bit, but above the federal poverty income guidelines. The survival budget is a good measure of cost of essentials, but it is not sustainable. ALICE workers are typically teachers, which is really relevant to this time of year, home health aides, baristas, bus drivers, postal workers, paramedics, store clerks, and other critical but low-wage workers who often face impossible choices every day. These workers are often one missed paycheck, one medical emergency, or one flat tire away from crisis. Every day in Pennsylvania, our neighbors are choosing between fixing a tire or putting food on their table. As I mentioned before, there was a new updated report that was released in May 2025. The research was updated based on the 2023 reports, and there was a focus on trends over the years for as long as we've had the ALICE data available to us. The household survival budgets were updated to continue to reflect the minimum cost of living here in Pennsylvania and meeting the necessities like housing, childcare, food, transportation, healthcare. I know I am missing one. Oh, technology plus taxes, and they're adjusted for different counties and household types. We also have the Alice Essentials Index, which measures the average change over time in the cost of essentials for goods and services. So we're going to take a minute to dig into the report very briefly, looking at both Pennsylvania and trends right here in Lancaster County. So in 2023, it was reported that 40% of Pennsylvania households face financial instability. 12% of those homes live in poverty and 28% are part of this Alice population we are discussing. That means that 1.4 million hardworking families across the state have incomes that exceeded the federal poverty guidelines, but are not high enough to pay for their basic needs. While the categories do change slightly here in Lancaster County, you do align with the state average where 40% of Lancaster County households fall below the Alice threshold, but when we break it down a little bit further, there's actually 9% of our neighbors here in Lancaster County that are living in poverty and 31% are Alice. The next couple slides, when we look at the trend over time from 2010 to 2023, will really help to highlight the difference between these category changes in Pennsylvania versus what we are seeing in Lancaster. As you can see here, unfortunately, the number of Alice households are growing. You'll see between 2010 and 2023, Pennsylvania saw a 17% rise in Alice households, with households in poverty increasing by 5% and the total number of households increasing by 7%. So we are seeing a much larger increase in Alice households than we are in households that are facing poverty, but also even in the total number of households. If we had time, we could dig further into the report to look at some of the reasons why there is this large increase in Alice households. But I think anecdotally, we all know that the cost of living has increased, but wages for our most vulnerable families has not kept up. Now, I want you to remember this slide when we switch to the next one, because you will see just a slight difference in the trends that we are seeing in Pennsylvania versus what we are seeing in Lancaster. I apologize because this does say Alice in Lancaster, not Alice in Lancaster County, but this is actually the county-wide perspective. I just mistyped there. So this is Alice in Lancaster County. You will see here similar trend lines to the number of households living in poverty. But what we do see and what is unique to Lancaster County compared to the rest of the state is that our neighbors here saw an even steeper incline in number of households over the last 3 years or so for those households that are considered Alice. So again, these are our asset limited, income constrained, and employed neighbors who are working, make above the federal poverty income guideline, but are still really one paycheck away from some type of crisis, right? So they are, ran over a screw on the way to work and have a flat tire and now need to decide between keeping the lights on, putting food on the table, and getting that tire fixed. And let's be honest, we all also know that getting that tire fixed also means access to education and employment opportunities. So these are impossible choices that our neighbors are making every day. So I'm going to go pretty quickly through this, but I just wanted you to see what this looked like. I referenced it earlier in the slides, but this is actually the survival budget for Pennsylvania. There is a specific survival budget for Lancaster, but as you can see, the budget is adjusted based on household composition, and adjustments are made based on number of people living in the household, ages, childcare needs, etc. It is important to note that the household survival budget is adjusted for cost of living in each county. And so you can actually get this information along with the individual number of households by borough or township, if that is something that is of interest to anyone here. All of the information is posted. You can see our website here. It is uwp.org/Alice. And you can see the state report, the Lancaster County report, and the Lancaster County report specifically includes the survival budget and the breakdown into boroughs and townships, if that is of interest to you. Now we will jump into why early literacy matters in this ALICE conversation. Economic mobility and literacy are deeply intertwined. The Annie E. Casey Foundation's research shows that reading proficiency by the end of 3rd grade is the leading predictor of high school graduation. Again, that being able to read at grade level by the end of 3rd grade is the leading predictor of high school graduation rates. And we know that high school graduates are more likely to secure stable employment, earn higher incomes, and break cycles of poverty. Children who are not reading proficiently by 3rd grade are 4 times more likely to drop out of high school. And for ALICE families, barriers like limited access to quality childcare, fewer books in the home, and less time for reading together due to work schedules can set children behind before kindergarten even begins. When 40% of households in Lancaster County and across Pennsylvania are below the ALICE threshold, it is clear that many children are growing up in conditions that make reading success harder to achieve, and that really does have a ripple effect that can last for decades. One program I am going to highlight here today that is making a measurable impact is called Too Small to Fail. It's a national early literacy initiative focused on closing the word gap and promoting language-rich environments for children from birth to age 5. With the partnership with the Barbara Bush Foundation, we were actually able to offer this program to target birth to age 8 as well. In Pennsylvania, Too Small to Fail has been piloted across multiple communities, including 6 local United Ways, and we are looking to expand this even further across the state. So I am hoping that it comes to an area near you in Lancaster County here soon. The program provides caregivers with tools, resources, and community spaces like laundromats, playgrounds, and grocery stores where reading, singing, and talking with young children can be encouraged in everyday routines. By embedding literacy promotion into daily life, Too Small to Fail meets families where they are, especially ALICE households that may not have the time or the resources to participate in formal literacy programs. Early exposure to books and rich conversation doesn't just prepare children for school, it changes their economic futures. So we did have so many great examples from our pilot programs across the state. I couldn't resist putting pictures in here for all of you. I will resist telling you stories from each of these pictures. But here you can see many examples of trusted messenger training, space transformation, resource distribution, and media impressions. I will say that there was one example, well, many examples. I shouldn't even share one because I think it diminishes all of the great things that has happened. But we did actually have one of the children who was in this program that told us extensively over time that it was his very first book that he owned for himself. And so he carried his book around in and out of his programming that he was part of for a couple weeks. And I think it's just a really important piece of getting these resources into the hands of children and connecting with folks that see them every day, really are, in many cases, are ALICE families themselves that are communicating this information out to families, and then providing these safe spaces and these space transformations for places where families are going, families have limited time, but you're able to meet them where they are while they're grocery shopping or doing laundry. And so I'll just pause for a minute here so you can look at the pictures of your friends and colleagues across the state who, like all of you, because you're here today, care about early childhood literacy and reaching out to ALICE families across our communities. This is actually just a recap of our Too Small to Fail pilot project. Too Small to Fail is an early learning initiative, early literacy initiative from the Clinton Foundation. And as you can see, I've already referenced that we partnered with the Barbara Bush Foundation to kind of expand the audience that we were reaching with this work. Across Pennsylvania, nearly 500 trusted messengers were trained, 22 space transformations occurred, and over 36,000 resources were distributed. We also had 250,000 media impressions that were earned through this program, which really got the information out to families about the importance of reading, talking, and singing with children and created positive family connections through the Too Small to Fail initiative. So this is my last slide, so I am right on our 10 to 15 minutes, but as we wrap up here, I just wanted to share a few high-level bullet points that we have discussed earlier and leave you with the call to action that I know you and your community members are working towards right here in Lancaster County. The connection between early literacy and economic mobility is clear. And when children develop strong reading skills early, they are more likely to graduate high school, pursue post-secondary education, and secure jobs with wages above the ALICE threshold. Parents can also experience economic benefits through this work. Families engaged in early learning often connect with community resources more often. They build social capital and report increased resilience in their day-to-day. In the long run, improving literacy rates contributes to a stronger local economy and reduces the number of households in financial hardship. So our call to action today that you can see here, that I know many of you are working on every day, is addressing literacy is not just an education issue, it is an economic mobility strategy and a community-wide responsibility. For Lancaster County and Pennsylvania, that means investing in early childhood programs that integrate literacy promotion, like the Too Small to Fail program that I talked about here, supporting ALICE families with affordable childcare, access to books, and community reading spaces, and using the ALICE data to target interventions where they are needed most. When we connect ALICE households to resources that strengthen early literacy, we're not just improving reading scores, we're building pathways to stability, graduation, and lifelong success. With that, I will say thank you all for joining us here today. I know I already thanked our moderators and our hosts and our panelists, but I will pause. My information is there if you do have any questions for me. After this is over, you are welcome to take my information and reach out and email me. But for now, I am going to stop sharing my screen and turn us back over to Amanda.
Oh, thank you, Kim. And yes, the resources, presentation, recording will all be shared with the audience after we conclude. And so thank you for the presentation on ALICE and making the connection of literacy and how it is connected to economic mobility. And what I'd like to do to start off the conversation with our panelists is set the stage with what has been the conversation regarding literacy in our community over the last few years. And so I'd like to kick off with Cheryl, but then any panelists are welcome to join in that question. So love to learn about how the conversation has evolved around literacy.
Thanks, Amanda. Yeah, I think people are more willing to recognize that as a nation, we're not doing as well as we could be doing. The most recent program for the International Assessment of Adult Competencies shows that 18% of working age adults in the United States struggle with the most basic reading skills and 29% struggle with basic math. So, when you hear those numbers, it doesn't feel possible in a country with compulsory education, but it really truly is our reality. And I think along with that is there's more recently been a greater amount of attention around understanding how people learn to read. And there's a growing body of research around understanding practices that actually do work and how to address the needs of struggling young readers and adult readers as well. I think we also, recognize that one of those factors, I think more broadly, is that equitable access to resources and supports that children need to become proficient readers by the time they start fourth grade is an issue, right? We used to talk about what happens to kids in school when they haven't been able to read or be read to when they were in their preschool years. And I think today we're talking more about integrating social, emotional learning and the link between someone's emotional well-being and school success. Because we do know that when people feel safe, when they feel supported and connected to the content of what they're reading, they're much more likely to be engaged. I also have really seen, literacy and people's thoughts about literacy as somewhat of a moving target. When, I can remember, like early on, people thought, oh, the literacy council, you teach reading. Reading is literacy. And to function in a rapidly changing society with such, continuously increasing demands on skills, I think people are now understanding how important it is to think about literacy as a broader set of skills and competencies that people need for life at home, for life in the community, and for life at work. And a critical thinking is another one of those essential literacy skills that I also think is more broadly recognized. And as large language models and social media, is pumping out a lot of content, people really do need to be able to understand the difference between, fact and fiction. And then jumping off that, digital skills is also, I think, now considered to be an essential literacy skill, not just a something that people can do for enjoyment or as a luxury. So I think those are really the big trends that I've seen, and just along with digital skills and why it's so important. The National Skills Coalition recently reported that 1 in 3 working age adults lack essential digital literacy skills, while most jobs require some use of technology.
Thank you for kind of setting the stage. Anyone else want to kind of add in there?
I might just add in, Cheryl covered a lot of those points. But when we also look at literacy and really being that foundational workforce issue too, and as Cheryl touched on that, really across every stage, whether getting a job, keeping a job, accelerating through a career pathway, when we really look at such a low unemployment rate and looking at helping all people find jobs, that really becomes a key issue that folks are looking at. So we have a lot of folks having a difficult finding employment when English is not their first language too. So it becomes even a safety issue, even becomes, when you have English not being their first language on top of literacy barriers and things like that, it really is a challenge, and businesses are challenged, with time and resources to know how to help, even to hire folks. So having businesses know what resources are available even in the community, but really across, looking at that impact it has then on the workforce and how critical it is to make sure we are helping the business community and individuals get those skills, are really critical to make sure they can be part of the labor force.
That's great. Thank you, Anna. And both Cheryl and Anna touched on some of the barriers, and as well as Kim in her presentation. And so when we look at some of the barriers, equitable access, language, I'm curious, what are some of the other barriers that are impacting our residents in Lancaster County or others around accessing literacy resources, or the barriers that are impacting workforce development, all those things that literacy engages and involves in?
Yeah, I can answer that. So In terms of our adult education programs, we see some very common barriers, and this is also reported, across the nation. Transportation is one of them. We have our sites in locations that are on a bus route, but it still remains a challenge. What we've done is a program, and Literacy Council has gone this direction as well, is to provide more online classes. We need to meet our learners where they are. And so providing online services has helped with that. We also have learners who struggle with childcare. So connecting with childcare is essential. We have a team of student advisors at IU13 Community Education whose job is to work with our adult learners, identify their challenges to education, and then work to overcome those challenges as well. Our classes are free. So money is, in terms of paying for classes, isn't an issue per se, but at the same time, we have to continue to advocate for adult literacy services. And we also have to understand that even though programs are free, indirect costs do play a role for people. Joining a class may or may not lead to a loss in wages or an increase in commute costs. So that's another factor at play. The other is self-efficacy. Students who are learning English here in the United States, or those who did not complete their high school education and are now studying in our HSC GED classes, may have low self-efficacy. And so what we try and do in our program is to create a really welcoming environment where students are encouraged to make mistakes and to fail, and where there's two-way learning between the instructor and the student, and understanding the diverse perspectives that they bring into the classroom. So building that confidence is definitely something that we see our instructors working hard at. And when an adult starts to unlock literacy, it's a magical thing, and that just breeds more confidence. So we really try and identify those early wins in our classes, because they're necessary for our adults. The other, thing is just persistence. So the research shows that for adults to improve their literacy, they need to study, for even up to 100 hours to make an increase in an educational functioning level. So again, not just getting students into our program, but helping them to remove barriers that help them to stay in our program is really, really critical. So yeah, it's a bit of what we do to address some of those barriers.
I could just jump in. I mean, here at the library, we try to, all our programs are free. We try to offer them at different times, but we do find that is a barrier as well. Family, we can't be open all the time, and we have a limited staff. So when we're offering our programs, it's oftentimes when families are working. So then we are trying to find ways to increase our programming in the evenings or possibly on weekends so that more families can take advantage of what we have to offer. The other thing we find is, along with transportation, is the parking costs. So the programs are free, but you have to pay to park here in the city in most places. So unless you're walking to us, that can also be a barrier. So when you were talking about like the hidden costs, that is a hidden cost to families. And so all those little things, even though we try to offer it free, being equitable, it's trying to find where can we go to meet folks where they don't have those barriers.
Thank you, Christine and Joshua. You listed a lot of barriers that get in the way, that impact equitable access, from language, transportation, the method in which you're delivering it, in person, online, the time of day, the costs, the other costs that are associated, like the parking, the indirect costs that you mentioned. And so all of this, I know, impacts generational, I think, outcomes and family outcomes. And we know that, I think, through the ALICE data that Kim shared. And the ALICE population is really, I think, unique in this conversation because they are prioritizing safety. They're prioritizing keeping food on the table. If they have kids, their housing. And so they are forced to make some of those decisions. And we need to, and I think that's why this work is so important, to make sure that we continue to provide equitable access to literacy. And so I do want to kind of segue, I do want to come back to the early learners. But while we're on kind of the adult learning topic, I want to focus a little bit on, from Anna's perspective, what local employers are telling us about the skills gap, and anyone else, who wants to join in that conversation, and how is literacy a factor in employment, and what can we be doing about that, or what are we doing about employment and career advancement?
Yeah, I mean, I can touch a little bit on that as well. I think what we hear is that employers, it really is, it becomes a safety issue when they have folks that just aren't proficient, and not just in English, but even comprehending some of, standard operating procedures, or, policies and things like that. And it always comes down to whose responsibility is it to really be teaching, or, funding to support this. So that is where, when we hear that, we're like, okay, well, there's a lot of support and things that we can do, but it also then is a time commitment. Who's going to pay for that time for that person to invest in that? So I think that really is, and it comes back then again around to, providing equitable opportunities for folks. I think it really is, it's a shift in looking at giving people an opportunity, looking at all people, and what their needs are. It's different for all people. So, and sometimes, when you look at literacy specifically, it doesn't have a look, right? You wouldn't know that somebody has low literacy until sometimes they're in the job and you discover, why is this an issue? So I think that is also surprising for businesses too. So really, it's not necessarily a finger pointing, but it's just, how do we solve this, and who's responsible for solving that? So I think it really is just being made aware of the resources that are available in our community, and then businesses, just taking the time and saying, okay, well, we're gonna be a business that's going to be here for our community, and we're going to make the time to do that. And there are some amazing companies that are doing that already, and making sure that they're investing in their employees.
Yeah, and I can piggyback that on that, Anna. We offer classes to employers. So we have classes that are running like at an employer work site. And that's one of the examples when an employer says, yeah, this is a shared responsibility. We're going to, ensure that our workers are equipped. And I think for employers, it's also about growth. They want to see their people growing within the company. They appreciate, the rich perspectives of staff who are from all around the world. So just wanted to add that piece as well. It's challenging at times to find the time to, offer an on-site class. But yeah, we've done it before. So that's really encouraging, and we've noticed more employers are open to that opportunity.
And it really shows an investment in the employee too, right? So they're seeing that win as a retention for their workforce too.
Yeah.
Thank you both for that. And I think that investment, I like that investment from the business community in their employees, wanting to see them grow, offering it on site, eliminating some of those barriers that we just discussed. One of the things that we do at Community Action Partnership is we are working to translate a lot of our information into some of the most common languages that are spoken, like our employee handbook, processes and procedures, providing interpretation at meetings and all staffs. And we're testing a lot of some of the technology that can really support our employees. But I think it does come back to the point that you made, Josh, around valuing the perspectives of people that are from all around the world that speak various languages. I think that is so important. So I really appreciate you highlighting that. I want to transition us to talking about our young learners, our young ones that are learning to read. In a previous life, I was a teacher who taught kids to read in elementary school. And so I do understand some of the things that Cheryl was talking about in the beginning around the curriculum changes, the research changes, because new methods and new findings are coming about how we do learn to read. And so I'm curious what, Christine, you have to say about some of the library, what the library is offering to really support our youngest learners who are learning to read, how that is really crucial. And I'm not sure if you have anything or any advice for school districts as they are prioritizing this. Like Kim said, third grade reading level is the strongest predictor of high school graduation rates. And we know that that is correlated to a lot of other things relating to post-secondary, career advancement, economic mobility. So Christine, yes, tell us about your thoughts around early learning and what the library is doing.
Well, for many years, the libraries had multiple story times, targeting from our very youngest babies, birth. You can come as soon as you're ready. Bring your baby to a story time. And that goes all the way up through preschool story time. And then we have lots of programs for older age kids. Now, all our programs follow a best practices as developed by the American Library Association, where we try to touch on all aspects of early learning. So we're singing, you're listening to stories, you're singing, you're doing finger plays. There's gross motor skills, fine motor skills. All our programs try to incorporate that to get kids ready. Also, I think just being a model for reading and demonstrating. A lot of parents are shy. They're not sure how to read to their children. They might think, oh, I can't do all the voices. It doesn't matter. So I think our librarians try to model that it's okay to be silly and to make literacy fun. Because once you get to school, it becomes a lot more serious. But if your child is already used to seeing books as fun and something that holds something for them, that what a story means, just those very early things, and just talking to them and introducing vocabulary, even though they may not know what it means, they're at least hearing those words. So, of course, all our books are free. And now with all of our databases, all you need is a library card. Anybody 5 and older can get a library card for free. So even if it is a barrier to come in when we have story times, you can still access a lot of these things online. There's so many platforms that are free where you can listen to people reading books, sharing those with your children, get more information, and even for older learners as well, for adults. All of our databases, once you have a library card, you can access so many databases so that they could practice the skills that they're learning in classes or in their workplace. And we always have librarians here to answer your questions. So if a parent comes in, we have a parenting collection, we have Autism Resource Center. We've really tried in our collection development to reflect some of those new trends in reading instruction. We've updated a lot of our early readers so they're phonics readers, but they're much more engaging than things you might remember from the past. So we're trying constantly to keep on track of that. And we have a pretty robust world language collection as well. So for folks who are reading in other languages, we have that to support you. And we have some that are bilingual as well. So you can get both.
Amanda, if I could just, piggyback off Christine's comments, I just want to say, Christine, I'm such a big fan of the libraries,
Thank you.
our community. I think what you do is absolutely wonderful. And I also just wanted to share, there's some community programs in Lancaster County, working with the Dolly Parton Foundation and Imagination Library. And we're an affiliate of Imagination Library. And I would just say, like, a call to action that I would have for the community is help us make that bigger. The really great thing about Imagination Library is when you enroll a child, it's free to the families. The organization that's the affiliate raises the funding to pay for the books and shipping. Significant amount of that is underwritten by the foundation. But if we can find community partners to extend that, because what that program does is it brings a book a month into the home of a child, for the first 5 years. So the idea is that when they may not be able to get to the library or they don't have access to books in school, they will have access to books in their home. And, Kim, I know that is such a big deal for a child to get a book coming to their home in their name, that's their book, and it incentivizes, reading in the family. There's all these great resources. So I think that's another call to action, is just help us and help United Way, like, think about how we can build on that program and make it even bigger.
Great. Thank you so much, Christine and Cheryl, for sharing. I'm curious, you talked a little bit about what we can do in partnership. I'm curious, in adult literacy, early learning literacy, it was something I think Kim had on her last slide around, investing in early learning, partner with your child cares, partner with, I'm sure, your school districts. I'm curious how you all are partnering to really, and maybe share with the audience some ways that they can partner, because partnership is so crucial. We know that our own organizations can't do it alone. We have a focus, but we know that in Lancaster County, we partner a lot. And so I think we're open to it. So how are some of the ways that you all are partnering with organizations? Who are those organizations to really support literacy development, either with our young learners or our adult learners?
I can answer that. I mean, we're all about partnerships. In fact, we do partner with CAP. They have play and learn here, and they offer that bilingually, which is something that no one on our staff could do. We are always looking for people who would like to do programs with us. If you speak another language and would like to start a program, an Arabic story time or a Spanish story time, definitely contact us and we can start the conversation. We partner with the Lancaster Rec. So when they have their fun events, they'll include a story time. And so someone from our organization will go and provide a story time. We just started our Library on the Go van. So you may have seen us around the county this summer, where our outreach librarian, Matthew, is out at the parks. He's going to day camps. We're going to schools. We're going to be at back to school nights this week for School District of Lancaster, just trying to get the word out there at as many events as possible. And we encourage, if you're interested, to please contact us about partnering.
Christine, thank you for answering that. I do want to, first of all, I want to highlight the fact that I think we've talked a lot about how early literacy growth can really happen, not just with formal reading. Don't get me wrong, we should be reading to our children, but you can talk, sing, have conversations, ask questions to build vocabulary. But I also want to encourage you to think outside of what the normal partners would be or the traditional partners would be, right? Because we talk a lot about school districts, or we have the library present here, and we have United Way, and we have CAP. Think about those partners that are seeing individuals that you want to reach and meeting them where they are, right? That was a big focus of what we did with the Too Small to Fail program. And we found that going out and talking to families, if we gave them a book and they were able to read while they were doing laundry, that was great. But even in the, DMVs, WIC provider areas, like places where people are, that there are trusted messengers, that are people in the communities that are able to serve those families, to talk to them about reading, but not just reading, not having to find half an hour to sit down and read a book, but finding time to talk about things that are happening around you. We have Let's Talk About posters for each of the communities where we did Too Small to Fail. And the idea was getting people out into the communities to covered bridge locations in Southern Alleghenies, or to oil well locations in Titusville, or in our Capital Region 1, we had information about Hershey. And so thinking about partners that are outside of the traditional space will help us to reach larger audiences than maybe we do on a day-to-day basis as well. But I do love your traveling library, and I love that you're going out to those locations as well.
Kim, I think that's such a really good point, because we know what our traditional formal partnerships are, and they work really well. And we talk about those a lot, but we often don't really talk about those sort of organic things that happen, like in churches, where people will start to connect with each other around, spreading the word about literacy, or getting Imagination Library started up in a new community. And I'm thinking about employers, because again, we think about employers as promoting literacy with their workforce. But in the past, I've worked with companies around promoting family literacy events and activities that were really successful. So, the employers host a day where the families come out, and it's like a literacy fair or a reading fair, and the kids get books, and the CEO of the company reads the book that the kids get, that day. And there's just a lot of family activities and fun and game playing to get people, excited and interested. So I think there are a whole lot of possibilities in the community that a whole entire community can get behind.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Cheryl, because that's what I was going to say is, employers who is working for them, a lot of them are parents, so where can we look at opportunities that, getting in front of them, and how can we help as the Workforce Board or Career Link in supporting that? We have a whole business service team that goes out and meets with employers, and, whatever we can do to support all of these initiatives. I'll also mention, so the Workforce Board, we purchased kiosk machines. So we have kiosks in all the 16 school districts, and every single high school, there's a kiosk machine. We have one at the library. We have one in the Ephrata Library. We have them in a lot of different community-based organizations. So if there's ever any information that we want to share, we put a lot of things out there. There's a banner that goes across the top that we can share information. But we also put a lot of resources. It's not just for high school students, it's also for adults. But making sure that they know the resources that are available in their community too. So, we don't sit in the Career Link and wait for people to come to us. We also make sure we're out there at the library, at Ephrata Library, and putting our programs out there as well. So.
Thank you all for sharing. I think one of the key things I heard here for our audience is when we think about partnership, and is thinking about who are the trusted organizations or places that our folks are going in our community. And so I love that collaboration idea. Our WIC mobile at CAP just launched. And so Christine, if your mobile traveling library wants to coordinate with our WIC mobile, I think that would be fantastic. But it is about what Kim said, going to those places where there's already trust, because I think people have a relationship with literacy, whether it's positive or negative, and so those trusting relationships are going to be really important. And so I do want to kind of segue into success stories, as well as how our audience can have a shared responsibility and like what could be some takeaways or action steps. And so I'd like to start off with the success stories. If we have maybe 2 or 3 success stories that our panelists have that they can share, and so maybe a strategy that really changed somebody's life. And we here at CAP talk about this in a way that our success stories don't have to be that a big grand success. We want to think about our work with our families as successes are the small goals that are also being achieved. And so it could be just enrolling in a program. That is a success. So I'm curious what our panelists want to share with the audience around how our strategies can lead and our work lead to success with our community and our neighbors.
Yeah, so in community education, we had a student named Alexandra Lawn, and she was a remarkable person. Basically, some of her background is she didn't end up finishing high school. She dropped out during her junior year. She was dealing with some personal issues and found it really difficult to focus in school. After that, she struggled for years with stable housing and with drug use. Later, she enrolled in our community education high school equivalency program because she wanted to earn her GED, or what we say as her high school equivalency diploma. And one of the reasons was she wanted to be reunited with her child. And so by enrolling and having consistent attendance in the program, she was able to be reunited with her child. She earned her high school equivalency diploma, and she is now working as a home health aide. So she got a credential that she needed to work as a home health aide, and she was also featured by Governor Shapiro during his budget address earlier this year. So that's just one example of the transformative power that adult education and literacy programs can offer across the state.
Amanda, I'll share a story that kind of piggybacks off Josh's. I think, in adult literacy, we often think of people who come into our program who don't have a credential or have very limited skills, but we also serve very highly skilled people from other countries who come here with credentials who can contribute pretty significantly in their new home. Lancaster County is home to hundreds of internationally trained physicians who are working, pulling stock from shelves in warehouses, or they're cleaning people's houses. They haven't been able to reclaim their career in medicine because of language barriers and credentialing barriers. So in 2016, we started a program at the Literacy Council to support internationally trained healthcare professionals on their journey. And we now have 8 people who completed the program with us who are now in a residency, one who just graduated and is now an official white coat physician. So I'm really proud of that. I think it's a great success, and it shows the very diverse population that we serve in adult education.
Thank you both, Josh and Cheryl, for sharing those success stories. Those are so impactful. And I'm curious, what would be some of if our community could get involved, if there was, how do we mobilize support for a shared responsibility around literacy? What does that look like? What advice would you have for our audience? And, some of the ways that people can get involved to really support literacy in our community?
Well, I don't mind kicking us off to start. I would say first recognize the problem. Like, I think it's very likely that people know someone who's struggling with basic literacy skills, reading, math, English proficiency. I think also don't judge, but offer support. I think, a lot of times when adults don't finish high school, they didn't want to fail. They faced circumstances that made finishing really hard. So I think, thinking about people in that light and supporting them and helping give them, the supports that they need to be successful. It's not a single event that leads someone to dropping out of school, but a complex number of things that occur in somebody's life. So, help people find us. I think that's another way. Help people find the library, help people find the career link, help people, connect to the supports that are there. And again, I would say those kinds of, referrals are not single events, but they're things that people might have to hear many times. They might have to hear it from different people in different ways, but, just keep it out there, because until you're ready, you might not remember.
Thanks, Cheryl. Yeah, and I would agree, trying to understand the resources that are available and that exist, and helping guide people to those. Both IU13 Community Ed and Literacy Council have volunteer opportunities as well. So, if you're interested in tutoring or serving as a classroom aide, it's a really rewarding opportunity to work individually one-on-one with someone and, help transform their literacy in their life.
I'll just add to all of those things, but really, the work that the Literacy Council and IU13 does in our community is just phenomenal. And, it really is, I think I said this in my opening remarks, but it's foundational to workforce development. And we need that support in order to make sure that our community has the workforce that it needs. And that support that we receive for literacy support, English as a second language, and just even workforce readiness support is just foundational. So, when things come up and opportunities to donate to support to the organization at any given moment, funding could go away, and these services are critical. And we are in a great community that does support each other. But we also, can't support a whole organization to continue to run. But what you can support, I know every dollar goes to the individuals that need it. So if you're in a place to support, I think that is, I'll speak for you, Cheryl, but I think you really, need to make sure that we keep these services in our community. We recently received some funds, and we are going to help. There's such a need for ESL and high school equivalency support, and there's such a wait list. So we're going to do what we can to see if we can get some more classes to support that need in our community. And then also be aware, like I said, funding can go away at any moment. So be aware. And, if you need to know more information, contact Cheryl, contact the IU13, advocate for the importance of these programs in our community.
You brought up a great point around advocacy, which is actually kind of something I was curious about. Like, how do people advocate? And so, like, what does that look like? What does advocacy look like in this space? And then we do have a question from our audience around how do you recommend sharing some of the information and information without causing people to get overwhelmed? Is there a certain place? And so I'm curious, how do you share the information without causing people to get overwhelmed? And is there a way for folks to get engaged in any advocacy? Because Anna, you bring up a great point.
I'll let you take this one, Cheryl.
Well, and Josh, please weigh in on this too, because I think that's always a really sticky wicket for people, right? It's like, how do you tell somebody that this program is available to them if you don't want to offend them or you don't want them to feel overwhelmed? And I think that's especially true with employers who want to make those referrals. But I think there are opportunities that can happen where you can just, have a conversation with somebody and just say, hey, you know, this is available. Did you ever check it out? And let them know it's there when they're ready. And I think when somebody connects with our programs, whether it's the IU or the Literacy Council, you know, you know, the whole like onboarding process is designed to be a welcoming, friendly, supportive environment so that people can make those choices when they're ready to do it. And it isn't judgmental, it is supportive. And it's to say, when you're ready, we're going to meet you where you are and we'll help you. And
Hey, Cheryl, you have a whole bunch of advocacy information on your website, or if folks want to know, how do they advocate for your programs at more the state level and federal level as well?
Yeah, I think what I would recommend people to do is go to the Pennsylvania Association for Adult Continuing Education, PACE.org. That's our trade association for adult education. And there are a ton of resources there on advocacy. We use a 3 clicks system for sending emails to our elected officials, and we can customize those. And that's thanks to our partnership with our National Association, COABE. But we also send those out on social media through, you know, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So if you follow us and you follow IU13 as well, IU13 Community Education, you'll be able to see some of those calls to action. We send them out through our newsletters and things like that. But advocacy has really become an essential component of our work. I mean, what we've learned is if you're not at the table, you are certainly on the menu, and we don't want to be on the menu. We want to be, you know, helping to influence what happens.
Thanks, Cheryl. I do want to jump in here because it sounds like we kind of cover the basis when we talk about advocacy work here at United Way of Pennsylvania and the work that you were just sharing, Cheryl. We actually are a member of the Start Strong Coalition here in Pennsylvania, and we do advocacy work on the state level for childcare concerns, access to childcare, supporting the workforce behind the workforce, right? In order for me to go to work, I have to have safe and affordable childcare with good learning opportunities that would increase literacy for my children. And so you can get involved with the Start Strong Coalition, and we do very similarly to what Cheryl just described, call to actions to increase wages for childcare providers, which is more than just providing childcare. There is a huge education component with the work that they do. And then advocating for spaces that are available to make sure that children have access to programs, high quality programs here in Pennsylvania. So if you are interested in the advocacy work on the entire scope, I think you could do any of the above for ways that you can get involved in advocacy and public policy in Pennsylvania.
Thank you so much for that. And the ways that our audience, I want to leave you to get involved. You know, I really appreciated starting that conversation off with recognizing the problem, non-judgmental, assuming positive intent. We don't know, we understand that this can be a generational and have generational impact. And so I love the idea of donating, volunteering, getting involved, advocating. And so what we will do is you all will receive the recording, the presentation, and I'll ensure that they get the advocacy resources as well too that Cheryl and Kim both shared. And don't forget to follow on the social media resources that Cheryl also said. And I just wanted to give a huge thanks to our panelists, all the work that they do and all the services that they provide to our community as well as our audience. And a big thanks to the United Way of Lancaster County for hosting this event today and bringing awareness to the literacy and its importance. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.